ready for your starting lineup here, folks, as we begin the outlap for Pro X30. One more race to go on the weekend here from Daytona International Speedway. The final one, 25 laps on the board for the Pro X30 senior drivers as they round their way down the backstretch. And Ryan Norberg will lead us to green, hopefully this time on the first time by. And as we watch Paulie Massimino pull alongside him, the rest of the field will as well. We're ready one more time today. Green flag in the air. We are racing down at turn one with a very awkward start there, Alex.
I thought for a moment, look at this, Massimino trying to get the inside. Oh no, he hooked the right front bumper on the left rear of Ryan Norberg, and it's cost him a lot of ground. Fortunate enough for Massimino, it didn't cave in the bumper at all and you know, hook on his tire, but getting aggressive early, elbows out for Massimino. He knows what it takes to go out there and beat Mr. 9-time, the driver they have all been chasing, the driver that's led every single lap this weekend at X30 Pro, and so this has now let Frankie Mossman flex his muscles. What do you now have, Frankie? You're using Joe Turney stuff. He said, listen, there's pressure on me this weekend, but I know I can do it. He's P2. You go back to Kolar out of Miami there for Vice Racing in fourth, and then back to Finn Bailiff, who's now going to let Massimino through. We know the pace that 308 machine has. Can he now close quite a monumental gap to the drivers in front, especially for Ryan Norberg? We know in Heat 1 and Heat 2 it looked a little easy. We joked around in the booth, Xander, talking about, you know, Ryan Norberg, is he saving tires? Speaking to him yesterday, he said, listen, there's really no need to save your stuff. The MGs are good, they last long enough, the Heats aren't long enough, so I promise you I was going 10/10. Well, in that third Heat race, Paulie answered the call. He was actually quicker than Norberg, and I think that you can argue a lap or two longer of a Heat race, he would have had him. Now, he's got a pretty tall mountain to climb, though. Paulie Massimino's 2.1 back from Norberg. Mossman, the gap to him, it's growing. It's almost a second. It's probably at a second now, and if anything, Kolar is the fastest of the two drivers. But for Ryan Norberg, you couldn't have asked for a better start. For a moment, we thought Massimino was going to go down to the inside. It's actually in the best case scenario for the 302.
Yeah, the Paulie Massimino hype train here hitting a bit of a snag as he works his way out of that final turn and down the front stretch now ahead of Finnegan Bailiff and behind Jacob Kolar. The gap to Frankie Mossman about a full second back. A little bit of a drop tire there for Kolar. The pressure's on. The Brandon Jarzakrak racing driver trying to work his way back and into third here as they work through turn number 4 and 5.
You look further back. Look at this. Kolar points him by. He doesn't even want to defend from Massimino because at this point, you see the thank you wave from Paulie. Paulie was a 10th quicker than Norberg last time by. He's going to need, well, at that pace he would get there, but for Massimino's sake, he needs to do it a little bit quicker because he also has to get around Mossman. Really mature stuff from Jacob Kolar. At this stage in the race, he realizes he's fading away from Frankie Mossman, and the guy behind him is quicker than everybody on the racetrack, so why defend? Why fight it? If anything, Paulie's your best bet to get back up to the front. He'll open some lanes, he'll park the C's for you. So Paulie Massimino, maybe some extra red mist in the air. He's got the red visor on. But really, it was to nobody's fault. It's just one of those things that happens in karting where you accidentally hook bumpers without meaning to. And I know maybe he was a couple more feet alongside Norberg. We might have seen some argy-bargy elbows out, and we might have a different leader. But nonetheless, it's Norberg over Mossman, over Kolar, over Massimino. What's the gap this time by? Does Mossman have anything for Ryan Norberg? If anything, Norberg again just flexing those muscles, growing the lead over the JHDD driver here around Daytona International Speedway. Lap time wise, still no one faster than Paulie Massimino. You see Frankie look over his shoulder. He knows the BJR driver is coming his way, and it's happening quickly. But for Paulie Massimino, he needs to make it happen fast, because at the end of the day, he's going to have 20 laps, roughly 19 laps, to go out there and catch Ryan Norberg up front. Look at the battle here further back. This is Kolar versus Finn Bailiff. Finn hasn't driven an X30 senior package in a race weekend since the SKUSA Winter Series last year in Homestead. So it's been over a year hiatus for him. He's taken to it like a duck to water. I mean, for a driver that drives the KA package so often, a lot of guys say, listen, it's not a whole lot different, right? The tire's different. obviously the way the engine applies its power is different. It's a little bit faster on the bottom and the top, but at the end of the day, it's a go-kart, right? You're driving it. So Finn Bailiff, he's doing a really good job here. Right now, he's on the last step of the podium to make it happen for TKG and Burrell Art. Whoa, look at this. Quinn Nickerson up the inside of Finn Bailiff, can't make a mistake. He qualified fourth, if you remember, for all the heat races. Fell back after each of them, but is having a pretty solid start to his main event. Bailiff thought about a move on the inside of Kolar, couldn't make it stick with Jacob Kolar. I wonder if either this is a tire pressure situation or if they just missed it on setup, because right now, Bailiff looks to be a lot quicker than Kolar. Mossman lets Massimino through. Lap time wise, last time around, identical to the thousandths almost for Paulie Massimino and Ryan Norberg. The gap is 2.1 when they crossed the stripe last time. We're on lap 7, about to be on lap 8 of 25. A long race, 17 more laps to go after this one. Lap time wise, well, Norberg resets fast lap, and with that pass from Paulie, naturally, you're going to lose some time. Paulie lost 3/10 to Ryan Norberg. So at this stage in the race, what do you got? You got to give it everything. If you're Paulie Massimino, if you're Brandon Jones Racing, we know last night after speaking to him, we asked him, what made the difference from the first two heats to the third heat. He said, listen, I didn't have a whole lot to lose. We needed to find a 10th to Ryan Norberg, so we might as well throw it at the go-kart heat number 3. They found the pace, and unfortunately, they replaced their pace with luck. So now they have bad luck here to start this main event. He's recharged through up to P2. This group behind Mickelson is the closest. You have the likes of Rima Labai, Levi Sangera, and then you go back to the likes of Caden McQueen, Ryan Raffa, and Davin Roberts. Caden McQueen, you want to talk about a weekend to forget for the Energy Corsa Americans driver. It goes to Caden McQueen. Didn't finish the first two heat races, dealing with a right hand injury for him. But looking forward, I mean, again, all you can really ask for the likes of Caden McQueen is just continuing to better that energy package, working on it. Recently got his maiden national race victory on the rock side of things. Wanted more this weekend here at the United States Pro Kart Series at Daytona, but there's only so much you can do when you're having damage control, Caleb. With so many poor results on Saturday. This is solid for Caden. Back into the top 10. His teammate up ahead. I think there's a top 7 maybe in the cards for Caden.
Yeah, I mean, I think you said it best there, Alex. You look at the weekend Caden McQueen has had, it's definitely one to forget, but again, there's still a lot to learn, right? Across the national circuit, I think more often this year than not, we're going to go to various different racetracks. We're going to see different things. We're going to encounter different variables out there, and for Caden, it's been a good learning experience as well. I mean, I talk about learning, that guy has more experience than anybody else as Paulie finally gets ahead of Frankie Mossman. I mean, I was down there trackside looking at that start, and I mean, what a start by Paulie to take the fight to Ryan, and that's what you have to do, right? That's what you need to do to get yourself ahead of Ryan and to take control of the race, but unfortunately, it fell out of Paulie's hands. Luckily for him, Ryan Norberg's been feeling a little bit under the weather this weekend. I mean, and again, you know the quality of driver Ryan is. He's not going to make a mistake out there, but that should just be something that you could use a little bit more to your advantage. Because Ryan, Paulie's 100% this weekend. He's feeling good, and the confidence that he's had after the weekend he's had in KA, you can see it starting to translate over to X30.
I gotta say here, this is interesting. So when they cross the stripe this time by, what's the gap? It's still 2.7, so it's not really changing up front. Norberg's still lapping slightly quicker than Paulie, but Mossman, Massimino got around Mossman a couple laps ago. Mossman has now refound some pace on board that Kart Republic under JHDD, and he started to push Massimino. I mean, again, he has no other choice, right? What are you going to do? Race for second? They can do that on the last lap, right? They have a 2.5-second buffer to Jacob Kolar further back. He's too busy fighting with Bailiff and Mickelson to really be a factor in the top 3. So if you're Mossman, you might as well push Paulie up to the front and see what you can do. I mean, you have a 2.7-second gap to close. It's going to take some really big heroics to make anything happen. There's Bailiff, there's Mickelson, Raheem Alabai, and Levi Sangera. What a weekend for Levi as well. I mean, I know Caden has had a rough weekend, but at this point, pace-wise, he's actually almost matching the pace of Caden McQueen on board that energy machine.
Yeah, you see Levi starting to come into his own here this weekend. Him and, he was starting right behind Caden throughout the heat races, and again, he's trying to work his way forward and make progress. For Raheem as well, he's talking about, how we talked about his front fairing, how they were kind of cutting it out. He said he the KR Factory guys over in Europe did that for the first time on the Kart Republic, and then he translated over after to almost every single kart that he drives. Because these new fairings don't give him enough room for his feet to fit in. And again, really impressive. I actually went up and apologized to him. And I was like, man, I was saying how I guess you were lacking a little bit of pace due to your size and how much grip you were producing out there on the racetrack. And then he puts it inside of the top 10 right in qualifying. And he's been impressive throughout the heat races as well, getting himself into the mix. When you talk about impressiveness, Davin Roberts, the rookie, spoke to his dad a little yesterday, and they said they had a lot of pace, but after the happy hour session, they had no idea where it went. But I mean, this is the weekend where you talked about, right? Davin always said, man, I watched these guys racing growing up. They were always the senior drivers, the veteran drivers, and that's where you kind of learn how to go around a racetrack and admiring those guys. And the fight's going to come. He's going to get there. And at only 13 years old, he outgrew the junior class so quick, Alex. And he's been impressive this weekend, and one of the standouts to me, as well as Remy Andretto's, who went up and over yesterday, got back in the car, and he was like, man, I was more surprised that I was okay yesterday than anything else. I feel perfectly fine, and again, you see Remy's out there running inside of the top 15 here.
Yeah, so too is Ryan Raffo, two-wheels it through turn 10. He's running double duty this weekend, and he had a lot of pace on Friday. Unfortunately, blew two motors, both in KA and X30 on the first round of heats, went to the backup stuff for the rest of the weekend, and from there the pace has not really been there for Ryan, just outside the top 10 there in 11th. I have to say, just highlighting how difficult this track is to put together. I was talking to Alan Isambard yesterday. He said, listen, it's not like it's that difficult of a racetrack to get right, but to get it right consistently is tough. It's 11 very tricky corners that have different characteristics, and normally you find yourself getting up 9, 8 of them right, and 2 or 3 of them wrong. And that's what we're seeing lap time-wise. Norbert, 2 laps ago, lost half a second to Massimino. Paulie started closing the gap. The following lap, a 38.6 for Ryan, a 39.4 for Paulie. Again, with all the dust getting thrown on the racetrack, with the difference in grip, the difference in setup, it makes it so hard to just go out there and actually bang out consistent lap times.
Yeah, indeed, right? And yesterday they were trading blows in that final heat race. Ryan and Paulie were 38.4s. You talk about qualifying times. I mean, Ryan was flying yesterday, and whenever he needed that extra 10th, he was able to get it, right? And that shows you that's the difference of consistency, of hitting your marks lap after lap. So whenever he needed it, he got it. And the same for Paulie, right? Whenever he needed that 10th, whenever he needed to go 2 tenths faster, he did. And it really showed in that last heat race, Alex.
You want to talk about driving 80%. Talk about driving 60%. I'm watching Ryan here. He was coasting into turn 1. He braked so earlier than what they were doing in qualifying and the heat races. He was coasting into the corner. His hands didn't move at all. Let's watch him one more time around go through turn 1. I mean, I know part of it is just trying to use up that Rhino liner and not use up your left sides, but this is a veteran play from Ryan Norberg. You know that at this point in the race, you have such a large lead. The risk of mistakes are high around this place. And if somehow Paulie and Frankie find an extra maybe 3 gears at this point, okay, well now you have better tires in the latter half of this race. So for Ryan Norberg, taking it easy out there on cruise control for the 3:02 with 5 to go.
Yeah, his fastest lap was a 38.546. Last time around was a 38.715. So he's 2 tenths off his fastest. And again, that's just finding the 10th when you need it, dialing it back just a little bit when you need to as well. And for Paulie, his fastest is 38.699. And this time around for Paulie, looks like a 38.740. So again, he's starting to bring it back in, but Ryan set a flyer last time around and still opening up that gap. Alex, I don't know if I agree with you too much on 60%. He said he's out there, he's not out there to play games, he's out there to win. And I think that's exactly how he's driving here today.
Yeah, but there's only so much. I mean, you're not going to drive 10 tenths and you have a 4-second lead. And a guy that's won so much. I'd love to, maybe after the weekend's done, just go out there and chat with him and say, listen, with 6 to go, 7 to go, be honest. Were you still driving 10 tenths? I'd be curious to see what he says. I'll probably say yeah, but I think we all know he's not really pushing all that hard anymore. There's no reason to really use up anything, just on the off chance that these two guys can go out there and get back to your rear bumper. But I think at this point, this is as far as Paulie and Frankie will go up the order. So Massimino is a good comeback charge through the field. I mean, we saw him hook his left front bumper on the right rear of Ryan Norberg and drop back to 5th, drove up to 2nd. I thought with the pace that he showed and how easy it was to get through the field, he'd have something for Ryan. But this is shades of Norberg at his best, right? He's going out there, putting fast laps, but doing it consistently, not looking back, leading every race, every lap of the weekend here in X30 Pro. And at this point for Ryan, this is a big confidence booster for a guy that I think needed this.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the preseason he had, definitely, I would say, went through a lot, right? He had a couple of wins in hand with one of the biggest rivals and one of the biggest rivalries we've seen in the U.S. and stateside in quite some time. And I mean, for the years and years, I think 12 years that Ryan's been in the senior class, it's been all about him. His name's, he's been a household name since the day he got into the senior categories, and he will continue to be for the time being. Right? And for this kid as well, starting to become one of the ones that people start to talk about. When you hit the racetrack, Vice Racing, only 2 karts under that tent here, and a family operation racing here out of AMR Homestead, Florida, just a couple of hours down the road. Kolar's been really impressive, and again, this weekend they just couldn't really compete with the Cosmic and you know, the RPG team as well, who's been super dominant on the X30 Pro side.
Yeah, and then one kart back, Finnegan Bailiff has started to pull away from Reem Alibi, but this would be a great showing for Finn, who again hasn't driven an X30 package on a race weekend in over a year, and to go out there and round out the podium would be a really good performance for Trinity Karting Group and Burrell Art. But white flag in the air, let's dance. Paulie Massimino versus Frankie Mossman goes defensive into 1, defensive slightly into 4, opens up for the corner, but blows the apex. They're gonna go slightly side by side. Frankie bails out, and now we're gonna have some fun here down the back straight, Caleb.
Yeah, Paulie going to the bottom of the racetrack, around the outside, looking Frankie to set up an over-under, and Ryan continue to rocket his way further and further away of these 2 young guns that are starting to become, I guess, some of the veterans in this field. But 12 years after his first race here, he wins again. Ryan Norberg, your winner in Daytona.
Side by side across the line, Massimino just eclipses Frankie Mossman, Kolar, Bailiff, Alibi, Caden McQueen to 7th, Mecpherson to 8th, Levi Sangera, Davin Roberts on debut. Rounds out your top 10, Remy Andredos, Ryan Raffa, Aiden Marenko, Christian Blevins Jr., Brooke Shambo, Alex Feldstein, Hiram, Mingnan Zhu, Michael Biazis, 2 drivers that didn't go out there, I believe just didn't finish this one here at the pull early. So a strong field here in X30 Pro, but it's headed by Ryan Norberg, 5 seconds ahead of the next closest driver. He wins the main event here at Daytona.
Yeah, so dominant for Ryan to end the weekend here, and 12 years since his last race here. Apologies there for that, but he's back on top here this weekend, and again, so dominant heading into the rest of the regular season. What a way to start for the 302, and we're going to be seeing him a whole lot more this year. And as well for Paulie, I mean, this weekend he definitely had a good showing, and Ryan was talking to us about his hands this weekend. He said, I don't know if I'm getting older or what it is, if I'm sick, my immune system's down, but my hands are definitely starting to hurt a whole lot more. And
Potassium.
yeah, I guess so, right? Maybe some bananas for Ryan Norberg later on. We'll see, but congratulations to Mr. 9-time. Looking to make that 10 this year, and that's crazy. Double digits is definitely something of, yeah,
that'd be nuts.
That's legendary.
That would
stuff.
be nuts.
That's,
I mean, to go out there and get 10, we talk about the major form of motorsports, right? I mean, 7 seems to be the number, right? Lewis Hamilton, Jimmy Johnson. No one's been able to go out there and do more than what Ryan's on, Mr. 9-time. So I guess you could almost say he's the winningest, most championship, you know, he holds the most championships, I think, in racing at this point, right? He's trying to go for 10 this year, like you mentioned. You see a little collaboration here with all the drivers further back, just maybe talking about wondering what they could have done to maybe go out there and get after Norberg. But I know for Paulie, his race started out well for 2 corners, and then corner number 3, hook at the bumper slightly at Norberg, and that's where at that point of the race, if you're Paulie Massimino, you know it makes your life a whole lot more difficult, and the best he could do was P2.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I definitely don't blame Paulie for going for the move, because that's what you have to do, especially when how dominant Ryan was. But again, just didn't work out, and that's racing. right? So it's been a great weekend here at the Daytona Super GP, the opening round of the United States Pro Kart Series in 2025. We're back in a couple of weeks for the Summer Scusa Pro Tour. We'll see you guys in Houston. For myself, Dale Bieska, Xander Clementel, Alexander Searle alongside me in the booth. We'll see you in 2 weeks.